is a wonderful, wonderful way to spend our life's energy. And whether it's by going to a Cracker Barrel or running for office or becoming a member of the League of Women Voters or NAACP or your faith community, whatever it is, becoming a Providence associate even, which is another way to share in our charism, in our ministry, that's open to all stripes. You don't have to be of any faith tradition, or you can be, it doesn't matter, married, single, women. What I hope is that we can learn that one life does matter. One voice added to the next voice to the next voice can make a difference. So write your letters to the editor, show up at a vigil. If there's a vigil at the courthouse, show up, or write a letter, or write a post on Facebook even, or Instagram or Twitter. But do it with civility. Do it with kindness. And you might think kindness when you don't agree with someone, but there's a way to be kind and still point out issues that are contrary to human dignity.
Job that our department did, and thank you for sharing your story with us and your life with us to be able to share it with other people today. Sure. So the first thing I'd like to start with is really at the beginning, and you mentioned your mother in the film, and how did your upbringing contribute to your life as an activist?
As you were asking that question, I look over here, my two sisters and one of my brothers is here today, so I'm really grateful that they could come, so thank you all. As I said in the film, we really did have an open household. We had unrelated people living with us for a while. I mean, my parents, I really believe by their living, they said in their actions that everybody counts. That nobody is outside of the circle of care and compassion, and we would reach out. I mean, and even things like sweeping the alley. I mean, we were just taught to do these things, to pay attention to our neighborhoods, to pay attention to the people around us. My dad's drugstore, he hired, folks, and we would hear stories about what was going on down there, and it was all kinds of folks, and it didn't matter. Yes, they were both college educated, raising 7 kids, grandparents upstairs, and one in the back bedroom, and it was all, we just all belonged. And I really do think that impacted me in a way that I didn't quite recognize until I was a bit older.
Can you, just because I like to hear about your parents, can you explain a little bit about what each of them did? Because I feel like they both had very giving careers too.
Yeah, so my mom, Alice, that you heard about in the film, she was a nurse in the Navy, a Navy nurse, and my dad was a pharmacist. In fact, they met in the Great Lakes Naval Station during the Second World War. By the way, my dad had to salute my mother on the base. And Mom liked to share that story, and I think that was another thing that impacted me.
I love that. So we've all come to a crossroads in our lives, and I think that's really pertinent to our town as well. But what times can you look back on as changing your path?
I thought of that, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of different times that changed my path. I would say one of the times had to do with, I had a rough patch in high school. Let's just put it that way. I had a bit of trouble. My button here says, speak truth to power. I think I was speaking something to power that probably wasn't really truth at that point in time. I was 15, let's put it that way. It was a time for soul searching, and it was a time for me to kind of reevaluate what I was doing in that as an adolescent, and really I came to understand that if I was going to even consider being a pharmacist like my dad, I had to do a few things a little bit differently. And so I took a different tack on that one. I think another time, truly, I had mentioned the faith community. That was St. Joan of Arc in Indianapolis, which, by the way, I have some other Indianapolis people here today. Our Indiana Women's March Board came over today, so thank you. Really appreciate you coming over. But where was I about? Oh, so I was already looking at my faith journey and trying to figure out what did it mean, to have this relationship with God and as an adult, and then our younger brother Eddie fell. Terrible accident, closed head injury. I won't go into the details, but there was really no hope that he would ever recover. 5 days later, we donated his organs, and that was a good thing, and we said our goodbyes to Eddie. The experience, though, was an amazing experience of community. Both the strangers in Buffalo, New York that helped us out, that would drive us around even though they were kind of sketchy drivers. But there really was a parish community who came to, at least for many of us, came to our aid and our comfort, and that spiritual care was really a time for me of giving God my full attention. It was the first time in my life, really, that God had my full attention. I was 26 at the time. And I really do believe that, again, set me on a different path. Still not religious life. That was still quite a surprise. But all that to say, that was another one of those crossroads.
Yeah. And so recently you became the justice promoter at St. Mary's of the Woods, which was another decision to make. And how do you kind of describe what that job is? That is really your title. How do you describe that to someone who's never heard of that?
Yeah, well, it's a fun job, I'll tell you that. For most of my adult life, I've been kind of out there in one way or another, trying to speak up for justice, putting myself in, leading a rally or walking the streets with a peace banner on my arm, trying to help direct a crowd when we were going to, let's say, the Israeli embassy when there was an issue in Chicago. Or I'd go to School of the Americas, which is what most of us call a terrorist training camp run by our U.S. government, by the military. All that to say, I would do these various things, but that was over and above my full-time work as a physician assistant or earlier in my day as a pharmacist. So when our community the leadership decided that, we really need to focus and get even more effective in our work of justice and getting out there and collaborating and knowing what's going on and really helping to move things forward in terms of human relationships. I'm like, ooh, can I do that? Instead of just in the evening and on the weekends, could I make this my full-time gig? And I was really pleased. It just really worked out at a really good time for me. And so I put myself out there, and they're like, yes, please do this. And so I get to go to work doing what I love to do. It's reading a lot of emails and it's connecting, but what it is really making our work more effective, helping to bring, like the death penalty convocation that happened in December, bringing national level speakers here and connecting with other faith organizations here in town and other just activist groups in town, is like our activist study hall and different things. It's just, I'll try to quit talking on that because I can spend the rest of the time about that. So it's really just catalyzing or making more effective the work that really a lot of us want to do, but we have full-time jobs to put bread on the table.
Yeah. I would quickly like to state that I love when I was talking with you about this, that you were saying how you could be a little bit more bold now because you don't have another job to go back to on Monday. That's a very good point, though. I think that it's a little bit difficult when you are balancing all of those different roles.
True. Up until about a year and a half ago, when I would leave to go to Fort Benning, Georgia, or down to the border or something, it was Dr. Stevens would say, now, you are going to be back here on Monday? We have appointments scheduled to you? Yes, I'll be back. So, yeah, you're right. Now it's I do have a little more flexible. I'm still accountable, and I still have to have those conversations. I'm looking at a few people I have to have those conversations with. Yeah, and thanks, too, for all the Sisters of Providence who showed up. That's really great. Why don't you raise your hands? Staff and Providence Associates, raise your hand so people know who you are, or stand up or something. still there. It's just a lot more flexible.
Yeah. So what are you most proud of as part of your social justice work?
You know, that's a really hard one because there's all these threads. I think Anne's here, right? Threads, weaving things together in different colors, and all the contrast and sometimes the similarity makes for a wonderful pattern. So, you know, it's hard to say what one thing I'm most proud of, except for I'm grateful that every day when I get up and I'm still given this gift of life, that I can continue to make that next connection. Right now, a thing that's really prominent in this community that I've been working on, that a lot of us have been working on, is the Facing Injustice process or program related to the Equal Justice Initiative and the whole process of raising up the fact that lynching happened, that George Ward was lynched here in this community, and that the NAACP and others of us allies are working to bring that to light, to work towards racial healing, to work towards recognizing that that kind of violence has no place in our society. So, you know, along those same lines, though, the violence of capital punishment is another thing that I feel real strongly about. I could go on and on. I'll just say one other thing, and that's the whole thing around anti-racism, to try to, as a white woman, a privileged white woman, to get kind of inside that or under that and try to work. That's really one of the things I really would like to get some energy around in this community, is to work towards understanding how racism and white privilege has impacted persons of color for generations, and how we can work together to let go of some of that, to unpack that. It's important.
It is important. So you describe your life as one of service and living collaboratively in a community. How do you explain this lifestyle to someone that is unaware of your role as a sister? I know, even chatting with you, I went to Catholic school, and I feel like I had no idea of what being a sister was really like.
Yeah, it does still get a little mysterious at times. Even for me, and I bet for others who've been living it longer than I have been. But you know, it's the common life. For those that are familiar with the scriptures in the New Testament especially, and in the Acts of the Apostles, they talk about holding all things in common and working towards the greater good. Well, for us, religious life, a vowed life of public vows, is about saying together that we make a commitment to one another. Like, I have a claim, the sisters have a claim on me, and I have a claim on them. I'm looking at Dawn, she's our general superior, so she's like the top dog. But we have a claim on each other. And that we say, we center our life on this. It's really about love. It's about centering our life in relationships that matter. Our relationship with God and God's Spirit indwelling in us and in every other part of creation. And that we do this together. Because, like for me, I know that on my own, I probably did a whole lot more rough patches, and it just wouldn't be good. So it's like to have the support of one another and the loving relationships, even when things can get a little dicey, because I'm not an individual agent now. I make decisions in collaboration. So even though I might want us to, you know, be really out there on a given topic, we are a collective. You know, we're not just single agents. So does that make any sense at all? We put everything in together. We put all our finances in together. We put our emotional energy and everything, our love. It's a life centered in love. That's a common love, that's not just with a spouse or a partner.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So I'm not going to have all the fun. I want to open up if other people have some questions too. So see if you can project as much as I'm trying. Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Brian Bennett. That's Brian Bennett. He's my vice chairperson for the 3E precinct in Terre Haute. Yay!
Barb, can you explain the significance of these table runners?
The actual table runner, that wasn't me. It's a little glitzy for me. Oh, the black and white. You know, I've been asked that question a lot. It's this one too? Uh-huh.
Yes.
So I'm going to put the library on the hot seat here. People have been wondering and been asking me if this is related to being in jail.
Criminal reform.
Criminal justice reform, it could be. But you know, Brian, since you asked that question, I wanted to take a minute to say, you'll find some other little things on the table because I couldn't resist putting some information out there. Feel free to take whatever's there. You might have something that says the Sustainable Development Goals, and then on the backside, writing a letter to your editor, how to find information about your candidates, the U.S. Capitol Switchboard phone number, call your legislators. There might be something on the Litany of Nonviolence from the Sisters of Providence. Just a variety of information. Oh, and our Providence Climate Agreement, there's a little business card there. So feel free to take whatever you find on the table. That was just my not so subtle way to contribute to the decor.
It's your show. You can do it.